Hi everyone, I'm doing a video today. I realized that I haven't shot a video and put it on YouTube since February of this year. Wow, that's been a long time. So, you know I don't mind shooting the videos, but editing them is a whole nother deal. I don't like to hear myself. So, sorry it's been so long, but I'm gonna do this little fairy for you today, color her up. She's a fairy that I did. She was just on my blog this past week, and this is the card I've actually done. And I'm going to show you how to color her. So I'm going to try to fit as much as I can into the first video. If we can't fit it all in, then I'll make a second video and upload that as well. This is a We Stamps image. It's actually sold in rubber form at iBreak for Stamps. The artist is Sylvia Zett, and she's an illustrator. Draws absolutely wonderful images, beautiful images, and they are very fun to color. I had the most fun coloring this fairy that I've had in a long time. So I wanted to share a little bit of that with you. This is the group of greens that we're going to be using on her. It's the YG family, 97, 95, 93, and 91. And then we're going to add some creams, which my favorites are E42, E41, and E40. Certainly doesn't mean you couldn't use some of the E50s if you like those better. But these to me were in the same tone as the greens, which have a lot of gray in them. So a lot of times when I mix my colors together, I try to stay in the same family, the warmth tone or the cool tones. If you've come to any of my classes in person, I'm still traveling through this fall and we'll restart up again mid-January. You'll know that I always tell you to keep your caps off while coloring. Work one color family at a time. Keep the caps off. It makes your coloring faster. The goal is to keep your ink a little bit wet so it blends easier for you. Every time you cap a marker, uncap another marker, you've wasted a few seconds of time that your ink might be drying. So again, I always start dark to light, and I'm going to do my flicking method. I'm going to zoom in here just a little bit for you. The paper I'm using today is the Copic Express-It blending sheets. I use this, and I also use the Cryrogen Iridescent. Those are my top two favorite papers. Certainly doesn't mean that you have to use them, but just want to let you know that's what I'm using today. And the Copic Express is a very bright white. It's very thin, so you have to be careful. It's easy to oversaturate. So if you have a heavy hand, lighten up your strokes when you're coloring. You know I teach dark to light for multiple reasons. You can review any of my other videos and I'll explain. We're going to do some parts of the wings, but I want to start off with her dress, and I'm going to do the folds. That is a technique that a lot of people struggle with. I really try to break it down in my classes with telling you that it's really just mountains and valleys. The top of the fold is the mountain, which is the top of the mountain. The bottom of the fold is the valley, and that's always going to be shaded. So if you break it down like that, whether you have the folds drawn in or not, you can color any kind of fold. So I know I'm going to have my light coming in this way, so I know the back side of her dress is going to naturally be dark. So I'm going to add some color in here, not too much. And then I'm going to do each valley of her folds. I'm just going to start with this section here. I'm going to pick up my next color and I'm going to start flicking it out just a little bit because I wanted to keep enough area for my lightest color, which is the top of the mountain. You have to adjust how much color you put down according to the area that you're coloring. Your strokes may be a little bit smaller than they are in something else just because of the space. My lightest color is the 91. And now I'm really going to come back, and I work small. I work one section at a time. It's too hard to try to work all across the image at once. Break your images down into small sections. Makes your blending easier. You tackle it easier. Sometimes you get overwhelmed when you work too large. So I always recommend break it down. I want those folds to be very, very dark. I like that high contrast. It really brings the image to life. I'm going to go back on the back side of her dress a little bit more and blend that out. The flicking method, if you watched any of my earlier videos, you know that I didn't do this as much, but I got so frustrated with some of the colors and the motions of blending that I decided to go back to my painting roots and use my Copics more like a paintbrush. So that's kind of how the flicking motion got invented. I just find that it's a lot easier, to blend when you do this instead of any kind of circles. But again, like I always say, if it works for you, keep doing it. You don't have to change because of something someone does. I'm going to go over the top of that fold. This is the top of the mountain, so I want that very light. So I'm going to come in and deepen up these little kind of pockets of folds here. Bring her dress to life here by really shadowing some of the areas. And with this Copic Express paper, again, you have to be very light, but the colors do blend nicely. You just have to work at it a little more maybe than some of the other papers. I always say that the Cryogen is a little bit more forgiving for boo-boos, so if you tend to be heavy-handed, you know, you might want to start with something like the Cryogen that's a little bit thicker. Allows for a little bit more color to be put down before it saturates. And get used to your Copics before you start using a paper that's super thin. I'm going to bring this little fold down just a little bit more as well. I'm working in a very small area, so I'm using very tiny strokes, just enough to blend. Again, by keeping those lids off my markers that I'm using right now, I can pick them up quickly and blend while the ink is still wet. And I'm going to deepen this even more. It's the beauty of Copics. You can keep coming in and adding more. If you barely touch the paper with your Copic, you're never adding too much ink. I always tell people to pretend it's like a feather in your hand and touch the paper like you're tickling a baby's tummy with the feather. That way you'll never push too hard. Your brush end, this nib, I use the side of it. I use as wide a stroke as I can fit. You never want to bend it. If you're bending it when you're coloring, then you're putting down way too much ink. One, you're wasting ink, and two, the more ink in your paper, the easier it is to oversaturate and the harder your blending is going to be. Alright, so I'm pretty happy with the tone of my shadows. I'm just going to come back and blend everything out just a little bit more. Now I'm going to do the underside of her dress. So I want to do the same kind of motion. I want to give some of the shadows underneath the dress. Basically here you get to be the artist, you get to kind of pick. I'm going to say that this is kind of a fold here. So it may be a little bit more shadowed here. And this is probably going to be a little darker. I'm going to keep this light because if I do that dark, it will, I'll lose it in this other fold here. So I'm going to keep that light and that light. I'm going to keep this a little lighter and this a little lighter. And then I'm going to go ahead and blend out what I just added. I always tell people, remember to breathe when you're coloring. Coloring's supposed to be fun. It shouldn't be stressful. If it's stressful, then you need to evaluate what you're doing. Whether you need some extra help with it, whether you're using the wrong materials. Using the wrong materials always makes a huge difference. So if you're getting frustrated, figure it out. When you color, it's supposed to be a zen-like experience. When I spend time in hospitals, over my lifetime, I've always asked for coloring books and crayons because it's something that calms me, keeps me a little bit calmer in a hospital setting, which is never fun. So please don't hold your breath while you're coloring and pass out. I would hate for that to happen. I'm going to deepen this fold up a little bit more too. Got a little bit blend it out there. And I want a little bit more contrast. And I'm using the same 4 colors. I'm just going back and forth between my lights and darks. Okay, so now the front side of her dress right here, I'm going to keep that pretty light. I'm actually going to go in and add a light tone, and then I'm going to come in and add just a little bit of shadow up around the bottom here, because the light is coming this way, so that front part of her is going to be a little bit lighter. Okay, let's start on her wings here. I just kind of basically picked, and I'll pull out my card here. This is my card. I just picked different parts of the wings to color with the greens. Obviously, you always get to be the coloring artist when you choose your images. You kind of have to pick and choose how you'd like to do it. And this, how I'm coloring this fairy, you can do in any colors. I think in different blues would be really pretty, but you can certainly mix it up. So I'm going to do this one wing here and show you how I did that.